Joining us right now to talk more about that is Congresswoman Claudia Tenney of New York, a former small business owner. Congresswoman, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. And I know you're right back on a lot of talk about small business and about lending. We want to get into that. But first, let's talk about these tariffs. A good idea, or are you against it?
I tend to be more on Gary's side. Gary B's got the idea. I think that Trump's onto something. I penned an article last year, 2016, about the problem we have with China, not just the tariffs, hacking, what's happening overall in terms of currency. All these things affect small businesses. I'm a small business owner in upstate New York. And put together with all the things that China is doing, I mean, we're trying to move in a direction that we're kind of trying to correct this. And I think that's what you're seeing in the market. I'm hoping it's a correction. I hope Dagan's dire prediction here is not true.
What do you say about the fact that China's coming back now and saying, oh, really? Well, we're going to tariff you. And so now we are looking at a serious retaliatory story.
Yeah, I think it's true. But I mean, Kim Jong-un also reacted to President Trump to some strong language. But think about what's happening here, though. China actually has the biggest marketplace in the world that it wants to have access to, and that's the United States. We are where the consumers are, and so they want to get access to us, too. So that's something that they've got to weigh into their negotiations. Their business model, I think, is flawed in the end. We know that they've set up these state-run businesses, and that's how they operate. I mean, much like what's done in New York State under our current governor, but we know that kind of cronyism, that kind of setup of state-run businesses in the long run doesn't work, which is why I tend to favor that we've got to do something now. How long are we going to wait? How long are we going to let China cheat? How long are we going to, stealing our intellectual property from our steel companies and others? And I think that's what Wilbur Ross and the president are recognizing, and something has to be done, and maybe this is a very short-term pain that may end up being a long-term gain for us.
What about the uncertainty this creates for small businesses? You are a small business owner. You understand they're trying to make plans. Now they're saying, which of these 1,300 products is going to be hit by a tariff? How big is the tariff? That's very hard for a small shop to deal with. Is that a big concern here, or do you think that's very, very temporary?
Because prices will go up.
Right. It is a concern, especially for the smaller businesses. We have some of the smaller businesses in our area. We have a company called Share Manufacturing, which took over the old Oneida Limited, which went under and went to Asia with its manufacturing. They're dependent on purchasing steel as well. But I also have a number of companies in my district that also are steel companies, and they like to see a little bit of help. They used to buy all their steel from American-based companies, and now they're buying it from overseas. I do think we're going to see an adjustment in the market, but I think making tariffs in a more targeted way, using currency, looking at the tax reform is something that's going to be helpful to us in the long run, especially these pass-through businesses in my region, which is the order of the day. I mean, we know they produce most of the jobs. This is the only way you're going to bring the Rust Belt back. And I live in the Rust Belt of New York.
Well, Congresswoman, you bring up a very interesting point, and I think some people ignore it. We're China's biggest buyer.
Absolutely.
By almost 4-to-1. How can you have a trade war, an active trade war, with your biggest buyer?
And they already have a $375 billion surplus on us. I mean, we're at a $375 billion deficit.
Well, yeah.
So are they going to threaten that huge surplus with these tariffs?
It'd be like 3M selling tape to Walmart, having a trade war with Walmart. They buy a lot more tape than Walmart buys from 3M. So it'd be silly, wouldn't it?
I agree with you. I mean, we are the marketplace. Where are they going to sell their goods and services? They create these enormous state-owned businesses, these big plants and companies, fancy new equipment, and then they say, come in and we'll run these for you. Remember, people that move to China, they don't own their businesses. They're owned by the state. And so people have to recognize that this isn't a situation where you have, where you have this actual free market going on there. You have government-run industries against a supposed free market here in the United States, at least something we're trying to get back to.
All true, but they are still out this morning saying that they're going to put these retaliatory tariffs in place. Look, we've got to talk about this $1.3 trillion spending bill. Congresswoman, you averted a shutdown, but of course you looking to a $1.3 trillion spending package delivered to the president's desk now. It includes defense as well as domestic spending. The measure is headed to the president's desk for signature, but a lot of pushback here. You voted yes.
I did, and it was a very hard vote. I'm a fiscal conservative. I hate the fact that we're spending. I don't like the fact that we're dependent on all this debt and deficit. We tried to get this done through our American Health Care Act. Remember, we had significant reforms to the mandatory spending side. We didn't get that done. We got a thumbs-down vote from one person in the Senate that prevented us from getting to that mandatory spending side, which is so large it eclipses what we do on the discretionary side. But that being said, we have a short-term fix. It's ugly. They called it the big ugly when I was a New York State Assemblywoman. I would call it the big ugly now.
Why can't you just say no? Why can't you just say no to the Democrats that want all this spending?
I would love to say no. The president actually supported this. My biggest concern, and my son is an active duty Marine officer who has indicated to me, and we have met with General Mattis and numerous people on that side, we have seriously degraded our military over the years. And that is being held as a big club to us. And when you see more of our good servicemen and women, our hardworking, honorably serving people, die in training than in combat, there is a problem with what we're doing on our military side. And General Mattis has said the only thing more dangerous than our most dangerous enemies is Congress. And we need to act, and we needed to do something with our military. But sadly, it came at a price.
Now, $80 billion in defense spending increase above the 2011 sequester levels, $63 billion increase in domestic spending. Right. The issue is because now Congress, Republicans and Democrats have signed off on higher spending levels, we now get into the $1 trillion annual budget deficits. What that ultimately will do, given the $21 trillion that we have in debt already, we're going to be spending more on interest on our debt in less than a decade, in just a matter of years, than we spend on our military. So this might be a short-term fix for defense spending and our military and those who are serving this country. However, we put that very spending and put our safety in jeopardy because we can't rein in our spending. That is the catch-22.
But I think we can rein in our spending. Let you understand. We do not have 51 reliable votes in the Senate. I don't care. We don't forget 60. We don't have 51 reliable votes. We proved that in our attempt to pass the American Health Care Act through reconciliation. A lot of these things.
And you got a big this.
Right. A lot of the things we could fix, we could do on regular order if we had enough votes. Even a simple majority, I would advocate to the Senate to go back to the simple majority. We don't have 51 reliable votes. And think about this. In my district alone, we once had an Air Force base that was closed. We now have one of the most significant assets. It's called Rome Labs. This asset is producing cutting-edge technology for the future of our military conflicts, which in the long run will create efficiencies, will make us able to deal with the asymmetrical enemies that we face now. So it's really important that some of these things happen. They also produce a lot of jobs in my regions which have been lost. I have some of the largest outmigration in the state of New York and in the country. And so these are companies that are, companies that are also part of the former Air Force Base, companies that are dependent, that our military is dependent on for many of our technologies. So I advocated for those, for me to turn around and say, hey, I'm advocating for these on the appropriation side, and to say, oh, by the way, I'm not going to vote for it because I don't like what happened on the domestic side, because we had to meet the needs of what
the irony is, though, the Republicans are now at even greater risk of losing the majority in the House and the Senate because of the tariffs and the retaliation from China. If you look at hog-producing states and soybean producers, those very farmers, because of the retaliation by China and the U.S. actions, are going to get smacked in the face. Right. And those are the very areas of this country that Trump won. These are the states like Iowa that sent him over the top in terms of the Electoral College.
There were technical corrections, though, in the appropriations process in some of these issues that were in the tax bill that would help with some of the trade and some of the issues in there. We still need to revisit NAFTA. We still need to revisit all these trade deals and do them, I think, on a unilateral basis. Right. I don't think, Trump, what did he say all over yesterday? The word of the day is reciprocal trade now. Yeah. We've gone from free, fair to reciprocal.
Yeah, well, China's calling it retaliatory. Yeah. Real quick on John Bolton, HR out, Bolton in, your thoughts?
Yeah, I like John Bolton. I think it's going to be, I just think it's interesting in the president's choices, and let's see how that works out. But I think John is a very strong person. I think he's going to be, it'll be interesting to see the strong personalities in the White House.
Yes.
Although we've had a number of them in the past. We'll see where they end up. But
Congresswoman, thanks
thank
very
you.
much.
Appreciate
Great to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you, too. Thanks.